replace Blatter at FIFA. The only spot on an otherwise clean record, his support of the decision to hand the 2022 World Cup to Qatar, one that's now under close scrutiny.
It's time now for the France 24 debate. Hello, welcome to the France 24 debate. I'm Annette Young. Once the lone voice of dissent on the Iran nuclear deal, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius was in Tehran this Wednesday. The minister is now seeking to smooth over any strains in the relationship created by France's tough stance during those negotiations that produced a historic nuclear agreement on July 14. Fabius also turned up bearing an invitation for Iranian President Hassan Rouhani to visit the French capital this November. The government is making it clear it won't stand in the way of lucrative trade opportunities, but by letting bygones be bygones, do the French now indeed stand a chance in getting a shot at those big bucks contracts? With me to discuss this today here in the studio is Henri d'Aragon, the co-founder of Cercle Iran Economy, which basically is an association which is encouraging ties between Iranian and French business people, I understand. Clément Derme from the French think tank IREMO. And Armin Arefi, the former Tehran correspondent and French-Iranian journalist at Le Point news magazine here in Paris. Hello. And from London by satellite is Ali Shihabi, a commentator on Saudi affairs and, as some of you might know, a frequent guest here on France 24 Debate. Thank you so much to all of you. But first of all, Aurore Dupuy takes a look back at relations between the two countries.
A handshake with President Rouhani, with Foreign Minister Javad Zarif and several other Iranian officials. Laurent Fabius is on an express visit to Tehran. It's the first time in 17 years a top French diplomat sets foot here.
I'm meeting with several Iranian officials to talk politics, but also business. We can do many things together, including in cultural and educational matters. We have our differences on many issues, as you know, but we hope to revive our relations with Iran.
Just 2 weeks after France and 5 other world powers reached a nuclear deal with Iran, international sanctions could soon be lifted, and France is keen to have a slice of the cake. For now, the Iranian government seems willing to cooperate.
We hope to witness increasing development of ties in line with the interests of the two countries and the strengthening of peace and security in the region and in the world.
But Fabius's visit wasn't welcomed by everyone. Iranian hardliners say France was too tough with Iran during the nuclear negotiations. And while the deal hasn't officially been implemented, regional issues like the war in Syria or Yemen and Iran's hostility towards Israel remain major sticking points. In a bid to iron out their differences, French President Hollande has invited his Iranian counterpart to Paris in November.
Clément, what a difference 2 weeks makes when you think of the comments that were emerging from Paris a couple of weeks ago in the lead up to that deal. How hard is it for Laurent Fabius to now be in Tehran and making friendly overtures, given the fact that Paris had such strong opposition to that agreement?
I think that for Laurent Fabius, the challenge is to sell the French position to the Iranian, and to explain that France is not only the nuclear policy of France, it's also the French cooperation and the economic interest. But I think French foreign minister is very pragmatic, so he's fully able to change his position and to explain to the Iranian pragmatic president that now we have to turn the page and to write a new one and to start cooperating in oil and gas, automotive sector. I think that will be the new French discourse, and also because France is competing with European partners like Italy, Germany, and they have to overcome this recent past, but also the Green Movement and Nicolas Sarkozy presidency, because the turning point in French-Iranian relationship was when Bernard Kouchner in 2007 threatened Iran to an attack. He said that it's war with Iran or Iranian bomb. And now we have the deal and we have the peace. So I think that the French previous neoconservative position has to be forgotten in Iran. And this is a challenge of Laurent Fabius.
Well, I just want to give the viewer some idea of how much things have changed in the last couple of weeks, because at the beginning of the month, the Le Point magazine, your magazine, Armin, had a headline in its July 1st edition which called Laurent Fabius the Iron Man against Iran. And basically saying that tougher than the United States, the French foreign minister could once again derail negotiations on Iranian nukes. It's a very different tone to what we're seeing today.
Yes, but being an Iron Man doesn't mean especially that you are against a deal. And I think from the beginning, Fabius was not against a deal, but wanted a tough deal so that he could please his main allies in the region that are Saudi Arabia and Israel. And I think at that point, he has quite succeeded because we don't have to forget that, okay, it was in November 2013 that it was a kind of a small crisis within the group of the 5+1 when Fabius said, "Oh, what's happening? I don't agree with the fact that Iran and the U.S. secretly have secret talks for months." And after 2 weeks after that statement, then they were able, the West, the 5+1, and Iran were able to get to an intermediary deal, which was tougher than the previous one, but that didn't mean that there were no deal. So I think that France wanted to show to the world, and especially to its allies, that it was like maybe the toughest country to negotiate with Iran, at least with the toughest positions. And on that point, I think it has succeeded. Now the question is to understand and to see if they will have some consequences, especially economically speaking. We'll have to see and wait.
Ali, in London, it seems to be that there's a short-term memory loss on a number of the parties involved in these talks. But how do you think the Saudis are watching this visit?
Look, the Saudi government has very close relationships with France, and it understands that France will want to reach out to Iran and develop its political and economic relations. So I don't think there is any issue with what is happening on that sphere. I think the bigger issue really is that Iran today is very similar to what the Soviet Union was in its last days in terms of its economic structure. So the Iranian economy today is a very statist economy. It's partially controlled by the Revolutionary Guard and partially controlled by foundations that report to the supreme leader. So there's a huge patronage network, very much like the Soviet Union towards its end days. And so it's going to take a long time for Iran to convert itself into a South Korea. And as a result, while the Iranians will dangle a lot of contracts and whet people's appetite, it's going to take some time before Iran becomes a really dynamic emerging market, assuming that that is the path that the leadership wants to take it. And we obviously hope that they do. We obviously hope that they want to focus domestically and build up their economy. But we are very skeptical. And the whole region is very skeptical and worry that instead the Iranians will be using their newfound access to wealth and resources and oil receipts to finance their proxies in Syria and Iraq and in Yemen. So I think that's the bigger picture of concern, really.
And isn't also the bigger picture, Henri, is trade and money?
Of course, as Clement said and Armin stated, Laurent Fabius didn't want to be the deal breaker. He wanted to be the deal well maker, which is totally different. He was not against a deal, but he didn't want a Iranian-US deal. He wanted a P5+1 with Iran deal. Since his arrival in the French Foreign Ministry, Laurent Fabius based his diplomacy on external trade. And Iran is a huge market for France, for Germany, and for the US, for everybody. So, of course, there is a big economic issues on this deal. And this first visit of Laurent Fabius, the first visit of for a French foreign minister since 12 years, shows that we're entering into the second step. The first step was the deal, was the policy. The second step is to get the market. And maybe the third step would be to take the lead of this market. I'd like to remind that Peugeot and Renault shares the third of the cars market in Iran, and big companies like Total, GDF Suez, and Suez Environnement are really interested by coming back in Iran, specialized in the sustainable technology. So of course this is also an economics diplomacy visit that we should keep in mind.
But Clément, it's incredibly rapid, given what's happened here. I mean, for the bystander, in terms of, as I said a month or so ago, it was a very different tone that was coming out of Paris. Agreements signed. The EU foreign policy chief turns up within days. The German's vice chancellor turns up, and now we have Laurent Fabius turning up.
I think yes, it's rapid for the political side, but for the economic background is different, because the Union of French Corporation organized a visit more than 1 year ago in Iran. So there is contacts between French companies and Iranian counterparts for a long time. So they prepare the ground for their comeback. And now there is a political, I would say, approval for this comeback. And I think this is very optimistic, because that should help to build trust between Iran and the world. Because more there are economic cooperation between Iran and the EU, more we have a leverage to pressure Iran on the nuclear issue. So also there is an interest to increase trade with Iran, to build trust between Iran and the world. I think this also play a role on the Iranian side, because if Iranian company builds ties with European counterparts, there will be business interest group in the political system of the Islamic Republic of Iran who will support to have normal relationship with the West, not like the time of Ahmadinejad presidency and the Iranian neoconservative, who were very aggressive against the West. So I think that should help economic background, should help to build trust between Iran and the world.
Yes, and Business First did not expect this deal to get back in the race. Since Hassan Rouhani's election, a lot of foreign companies started secret talks to get back in Iran after the deal. So,
But wasn't there pressure, therefore, on the French Foreign Ministry to actually, at the end, let that deal go through? Because there are a lot of French companies with vested interests. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, the trade between France and Iran was, I think, somewhere around 3.5 billion euros before the sanctions kicked in. It's now less than $1 billion. So there's a lot of money involved here, isn't there?
Of course, the hot issues was to keep this hot position but not break the deal. And this was the big success of Laurent Fabius, because now he kept his position. He kept his legitimacy to the Saudi side, and now he has the legitimacy to come back to Iran, because he accepted the deal, and to keep the other side and the Saudis part.
I mean, is Tehran ready to forgive Paris? I mean, it appears to be the case, given the fact that they got the red carpet treatment.
But it depends on who you mean by saying Tehran, because you have many circles of powers in Iran. You have the government, which is moderate. Actually, the Fabius's visit was quite a success. The
hardliners didn't want him there, did they?
Yes, but we didn't see them. We just read them in the press, but we didn't see them today. Well, the only little small problem we saw was only 20 people demonstrating in front of the Mehrabad Tehran airport. That was nothing. And the funny thing is that they had to face off with the policemen, and some of them were arrested. So that is a sign. That means that the government didn't want these people to interfere into these visits. On the other hand, we saw that Fabius was welcomed by the president, by the parliament speaker Ali Larijani, by Foreign Minister Zarif, and by the petrol minister Bijan Zanganeh. And he said it. We are ready to let Total come back to Iran. We don't have to forget that Total, the Total firm, was very active in Iran, and it has never completely broke his ties with Iran. So I think that it is actually quite a success, and the supreme leader of Iran wanted this deal, and I feel that he wanted the sanctions to be lifted, and I'm just feeling that he will let a company to get back to Iran, because it is in the interest of Iran.
Does it also mean that Laurent Fabius has been forgiven for, you know, that contaminated blood scandal back in the...
Not by the people. When you...
I mean, perhaps we just need to remind the viewer who may not be familiar that this is when France sent HIV-infected blood supplies to a number of countries, but including Iran, in the 1980s when Laurent Fabius was then Prime Minister.
I think it was an issue that was published these days by the Conservatives, and that's not the main issue. The relationship between France and Iran is very complex. We don't have to forget that France welcomed Khomeini in 1979. Then France, 1 year later, supported Saddam Hussein to invade Iran and also supplied him with chemical weapons. And France, in the 90s, France let all his companies go and invest into Iran, such as Peugeot, Total, PSA, Renault even. And then these companies were forced to leave Iran because of the sanctions that France government put against Iran. So that's quite a complex situation.
It's a schizophrenic relationship.
Yes, it is kind of a schizophrenic situation. But when you talk to people, Iranian people, of course, they're just open to the world. That's something very important. The Iranian society is quite young, educated, and really open to the world, to the West. Maybe one of the most educated and open to the Western world in the region. That's very...
And people within the government, as you say, are moderate, and are they more open now to talking to people like Laurent?
Exactly. When you see all the ministers of Rouhani's cabinets, lots of them have actually studied abroad, especially in the US. So that's very important. But we don't have to forget that, on the other hand, we have also other circles of powers, very conservative, such as the Revolutionary Guards, that have taken benefit from the sanctions to take all the power, to take all the economy within their hands. And I think we might maybe see a kind of a real struggle between all these conservative and moderate powers in Iran.
I mean, we're just going to press the pause button because we're going to take a short break, and I'll be back with the second part of the France 24 debate. Do stay with us here in the meantime.